Okay. So we're gonna play a little game, just to kind of maybe get you all warmed up and thinking about families and how that, how they're formed, what they look like, what your families look like, and maybe what some others look like. So we're gonna play a really fun game called Last Man Standing. So maybe we can just do this with raising our hands here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask you a question. Okay, and so to begin with, everyone's going to raise their hand. So we can all just have our hands raised like this, and then we're going to ask you a question. And if the answer is yes, leave your hand up. Okay, but if the answer is no, then you're going to put your hand down.
So like your personal answer.
Yeah, so it's just your personal answer. All right.
Yeah. All right, so everyone put your hand up first, and I'm going to ask a question, and in your family, if the answer is no, you're going to put your hand down. All right, so the first question, do you have more than 2 siblings? So if your answer is no, you're going to put your hand down, and if your answer is yes, you're going to leave your hand up.
Okay, so I'm like, my family doesn't have, or I don't have more than 2 siblings, so I would put my hand down. All right.
And I do have more than 2 siblings, so I'm going to keep my hand up.
All right. Cool. So our next question is, if you still have your hands up, have you seen your grandparents within the past 2 weeks?
Also out for that one.
All right. So I'm trying to see, do we have anyone kind of with their hands up? I can't.
Oh, there's a few.
There are a few. All right. Great. So we're gonna do our next question.
This one may be a bit strange to think about. How many of you call your cousins by their first name? And if you do, put your hand down. Is there anyone left with their hand up? I actually can't tell.
No, I think most.
Maybe.
Oh, I see one. So congratulations, you're a winner.
All right, awesome.
So the reason we're asking these questions is because for all 3 of our countries, some of these may have different answers. And we're going to get into that now. I think we're going to start talking about family living situations and how that's different in all 3 of our countries. Do any of you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. So in the Philippines, it is very common for families to live together in the same house for a very long time. So it's very common to see not just like parents and kids living in the same house, but also the grandparents living there too. And a lot of times, even when like the kids are in college or maybe they have their own jobs, they'll continue to live there with their parents and their grandparents until maybe they get married, and then they'll get their own house, but then eventually their parents and even their great-grandparents might move in with them. So they definitely have a very, very big focus on everyone living together in the same house, that sense of community, and it's kind of unlikely to see just like a couple and their kids living by themselves in a house.
Yeah, so that's kind of similar for Ghana, right? We have, you would have your head of household, so probably like the father, you have the mother, and then usually families are very large. You wouldn't just have one child, you would have at least maybe 3 or 4. That's very common, but you definitely can just have one. And so here, the children do live at home. They help take care of the household. They are, going to school as well, but helping out in kind of with what's going on here. The father is usually out working during the day, and the mother is, taking care of the children, working very hard to manage the household, cook, and just take care of everyone. So she's really the backbone there. So families are really large. They keep in contact. And it's also very common for people to have maybe like the same mom but different dads, or the same dad and different moms, things like that. So families, they grow and grow and grow because everyone tries to stay really close.
Singapore is actually a lot like the Philippines. The nuclear family is the center of all the households, and you will often see 3 or 4 generations in one house. And like Ghana, the head of the household is usually the man, usually the oldest, which would probably be your grandfather. And it's also very common for children to live at home until they're married. It's actually expected, which is quite different from the US. And we tend to have bigger families, a lot of children. My mother's one of 5. which is not something we see often here. So, and you keep very close in contact, not only with your sisters and your parents, but also with your cousins, your aunt, your second cousin who's related to you through some distant way, partially because Singapore is so very small that all of your family is 10 minutes away.
Oh, well, that's like so interesting, just because that's not anything that I know I've experienced. Like living here in the U.S., my grandparents and everyone, they maybe live 4 or 5 hours away or on the other side of the country, which is not very close. Great. So, so we're also going to talk a little bit about respect for our parents and grandparents, just because it's so important in these countries and for these families. So, we've talked about how maybe, whether we see our grandparents in the U.S., do I see my grandparents every week or 2 weeks? And because they live so far away, I can't. But in Ghana here, they do have closer families, so the grandparents are involved, parents are involved, and then the grandparents and elders are really respected. So that means that they kind of get to make the decisions for families, whether they want to do something or not do something, and they are very wise. So they have a lot of experience and families. Elders are also served first at meal times. This is another sign of respect, and then maybe the children are served last. And so another sign of respect for adults, not just grandparents, but is to call them auntie or uncle. So by doing this, it's kind of a sign of respect, and it also shows that, we are just one big family. So you can call someone who is a close family friend auntie, or you can, you would not just call your uncle. I mean, you call him uncle, but then you would call another close adult uncle as well. And this is just showing that you do have a lot of respect for them, and then they are part of your family, even if they're maybe not biologically related.
Yeah, so in the Philippines, like I said before, a lot of the generations of families will live in the same house. So because of that, there are very distinct roles for the children and very distinct roles for the parents or the grandparents. So similar to Ghana, it's very important for children to be respectful of their grandparents and their parents and show them signs of respect. So one thing that they do in the Philippines to show respect is when they're seeing their mom again or saying hi, or their grandmother or grandfather, anything like that, they go up to them, they take their hand, and they put it on their forehead when they say hello, just as a sign of respect. So thank you for letting me use your hand. So that's another thing that they have. We kind of touched on this before about fathers being the head of the household. Because of that, children really see their father as kind of like a figure of authority, and because of that, they need to definitely be respectful of him, ask his opinion on things, and be very respectful of that opinion. While the mother it's very important to show respect for her, but it's more of, this is someone